and why the story keeps changing. Tap subscribe, share this with the one friend who never buys the official line, and let's step into the dark together. It began not with light, but with silence. A tremor in data. An elegant distortion that shouldn't have existed. A faint dip in brightness registering across instruments half a world apart. Chile, the Canaries, Hawaii. Each caught the same impossible pulse. A synchronized heartbeat echoing through the deep void. When the raw frames arrived, technicians assumed noise. Cosmic rays. Glitches. But the pattern held. Symmetrical, consistent, deliberate. A single spark flaring against the dark hemisphere of 3I/Atlas, the side hidden from the sun. No explosion. No debris. Just a flash so brief it barely kissed a single pixel. Then a ring of ionization expanding outward before collapsing in perfect silence, as though space itself inhaled and exhaled. Comets don't behave like that. They fracture, vent, dissolve. They obey entropy. This didn't. Within 180 seconds, the object's course altered, not wildly, but precisely. Its hyperbolic drift curved by 1/10 of a degree, just enough to suggest intention. Tracking logs confirmed what equations denied. The body had stabilized. Not by accident, by control. Analysts scoured the models for natural causes. Solar radiation? No. Thermal venting? Impossible. The energy signature showed absorption, not release, like a system rerouting power after a shock. It was as if something inside had awakened, adjusted, and remembered its balance. No one could explain it. No one wanted to, because in that instant, a dead traveler from interstellar space stopped being a rock and started behaving like a mind. The blackout didn't come with alarms. It came with updates. Routine, polished, sanitized. At exactly 2:13 Universal Time Coordinated, the live tracking dashboards of multiple observatories went dark, replaced by a single phrase. Checksum mismatch. Data integrity under review. Within hours, archived telemetry files began to vanish, not gradually, but in perfect sequence, as if erased by design. Researchers in Europe noticed missing frames. Teams in Arizona found corrupted logs. And across the Pacific, one independent observer stared at a message that felt colder than vacuum itself. Access revoked. Official channels dismissed it as a network synchronization error. But astronomers know what silence sounds like. It's too clean, too intentional. Private mirrors tried to recompile the lost data, stitching fragments from auto-download caches. What they found was haunting. Bursts of high-density metadata hidden between corrupted images, encrypted headers pointing to frequencies no one had ever logged before. It wasn't a malfunction. It was a filter, a digital mask sweeping through the grid, selecting what humanity was allowed to remember. The language from agencies grew cautious overnight. Non-gravitational acceleration, solar outgassing, phrases polished smooth enough to dull curiosity. But every scientist who'd glimpsed the unaltered data felt the same unease, that the anomaly wasn't an accident, and that someone, somewhere, was already studying what they could no longer see. For the first time since the object arrival, 3I/Atlas wasn't the only mystery. The greater enigma had become us, our fear of what truth might do once uncontained. And as the world turned its eyes away, a few refused to blink. It began as a whisper in the light curves, not loud enough to be proof, just enough to unsettle those who still dared to measure. Amateur arrays across Europe and Asia began feeding in their data, jagged, imperfect, human. Yet when overlaid, every thread pulsed in unison. A rise, a dip, a rhythm, the kind of cadence you don't see in drifting stone, the kind that suggests timing, purpose. 3I/Atlas, once a chaotic tumble of ice and debris, was moving differently now. Its rotation, once erratic, had become unervingly precise. 11.3 hours per turn, locked like a metronome. Each pulse in luminosity came at near-exact intervals, milliseconds apart, repeating with the discipline of code. And then came the inversion. The side shrouded in shadow began to warm, while the sunlit hemisphere cooled. Instruments confirmed it, heat transferring from dark to light, as though the object was managing its own energy. That defied every law of thermodynamics a comet should obey. Natural matter doesn't move heat with intent. Machines do. Independent analysts try to rationalize it, perhaps reflective dust or delayed sublimation. But the models failed, one after another. The data wouldn't yield to reason. It pulsed, it adjusted, and most disturbingly, it responded. A few nights later, a hobbyist radio telescope in Finland detected faint modulations in the background hiss, signals synchronized with the optical pulses. Too weak to decode, too precise to ignore. What if it wasn't light we were observing, but language? And if it was language, who or what was listening back? The tale should have been chaos. Every comet's wake is dust, ice, vapor, all whipped into a luminous frenzy by the solar wind. Disorder is the language of nature. But 3I/Atlas spoke in symmetry. In its newest passes, telescopes from Japan to Arizona captured something that refused every model. A filament of light, thin as silk, unwavering. No turbulence, no scatter, just a single luminous thread trailing behind the object, glowing steady no matter how far it drifted from the sun's solar radiation should have shredded it. Yet the filament held form, as if some invisible hand maintained its geometry. When analysts polarized the imagery, the glow fractured into micro-patterns, plane-like grids aligning in unison, rotating fractionally, responding to something. They turned like scales catching command from a field no one could detect. Plasma? Magnetism? Or control? Skeptics said it was image noise. Pareidolia. But the pattern persisted across 3 independent spectrographs, different instruments, different hemispheres, same impossible order. That's not coincidence. That's choreography. Then came the velocity shift. Subtle, almost polite. A micro-deceleration, too small to announce itself, but too deliberate to ignore. Solar pressure couldn't explain it. Gas venting couldn't either. The change followed a curve of intent, a precise correction guiding 3I/Atlas toward a darker corridor of space, one that would soon slip beyond Earth's aligned observation arc. Not fleeing, not random, avoiding. Someone or something didn't want to be seen anymore. And as our cameras dimmed, one final spectral echo trembled through the data, a residue of ionized particles pulsing like a heartbeat in retreat. The wake wasn't fading. It was whispering, and what it whispered next would force even NASA to hold its breath. By the time the world turned its gaze back to 3I/Atlas, it was already moving differently. Not faster, not slower, but aware. Its path had shifted just enough to matter, bending through a thin corridor of space where our best eyes could barely follow. The official narrative called it a coincidence of orbital perturbation. But in the deep space logs, the pattern was unmistakable. The object wasn't avoiding gravity. It was avoiding us. Trajectory overlays revealed a chilling symmetry, each correction angled away from the overlapping sensor cones of Earth's main observatories. Every adjustment perfectly timed with our observation windows. This wasn't random motion. It was etiquette, or something that looked very much like caution. The so-called impact weeks earlier now seemed less like an accident and more like initiation. A handshake, a trigger. Whatever struck 3I/Atlas had not damaged it. It had awakened it. And in the quiet that followed, the comet, or craft, or something in between, began to choose its own silence. Those who still tracked it whispered that its optical pulses had softened, almost like a dimming beacon. Not gone, just quieter, as if it understood it had been seen, and was now deciding how much more to reveal. Perhaps the blackout wasn't meant to hide the object from us. Perhaps it was meant to hide us from it. Because if 3I/Atlas truly is what the evidence implies, a relic of an intelligence far older than our species, then the question has already changed. It's no longer what hit it or who built it. It's why it responded now, and why, after eons of silence, it might finally be looking back. Because the moment you realize the sky is watching you, you stop calling it empty.